part 10 of my 21 episode series regarding putting on the armor of God and fighting in spiritual warfare. Please stay tuned. Understanding how to keep your eyes fixed on God while putting on the armor of God to fight in spiritual warfare first starts with understanding your own sin and how the enemy is introduced in your life. When you get this concept, then you'll be able to flee and not return to your own sinful ways. In Proverbs 26:11, it says, "As a dog returns to his vomit, so a fool returns to his foolishness." Episode 1, I introduced the topic of spiritual warfare and why it's important to keep your eyes fixed on God according to Hebrews 12:2, which says, "Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God." I explained in that episode that I have been through so much in my life that could have broke me down spiritually and mentally, but through all the hurt and the pain that I endured, that is what made me grow closer to God. In episode 2, I discussed what being lukewarm is and why it's so important for people to choose a side, because in Revelations 3:15 and 16, it says, "I know all the things you do, that you are neither hot nor cold. I wish that you were one or the other. But since you are like lukewarm water, neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth." In episode 3, I discussed what perception was. When you are around sin, sin becomes normal to you, which is why you have to change your environment so that your perception of life and God does not become conformed to the world, because as it mentions in Romans 12:2, it says, "And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may be able to prove what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." In episode 4, I explained how Satan was the channel to all your problems, what his strategy was, and gave you a few examples of people in the Bible that was tempted by Satan's schemes. And according to John 10:10, it says, "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it more abundantly." Episode 5, I discussed how God does hear our cries and explain how what we do and who we associate with can either divide us from Christ or bring us closer to him. In Proverbs 4:14, it says, "Do not set foot on the path of the wicked or walk in the way of evildoers." It also says in Proverbs 1:10, "My child, if sinners entice you, turn your back on them." So when we are looking for God's protection and for our prayers to be heard, we cannot associate with evil or evil people. In episode 6, I broke down the 4 basic elements of Christian prayer, and I read some of my sample prayers so that if you do not have a prayer life and you needed some samples to review, to use, just so that you can begin your prayer walk, I also listed that in episode 6. In episode 7, I explained what living a double life looks like. In episode 8, I explained what the sins of the flesh is and how committing those sins will prevent your prayers from being answered. In episode 9, I explained in detail what spiritual warfare is, how to arm yourself for battle, and the weapons needed to fight. This is episode 10, providing you with a recap of everything I've discussed so far, so that if you missed the video or need more information on a particular topic, you can refer back to those videos in the previous episodes. On Monday, which is episode 11, I'm going to be discussing the difference between desire and lust. Matthew 7:13 and 14 says, "You can enter God's kingdom only through the narrow gate. The highway to hell is broad, and its gate is wide for many who choose that way. But the gateway to life is very narrow, and the road is difficult, and only a few ever find it. If your desire is to make it to heaven, per this scripture, it's a narrow gate that only a few people find. So in order to be a part of that few, you have to resist the lust of the flesh, fix your eyes on Christ, and follow the narrow path that leads into the kingdom of heaven. Thank you for staying tuned and watching my 21 episode series discussing how to put on the armor of God when fighting in spiritual warfare. I love you and God bless.